do makan wala te ga pedi khube. Hey ngatse de lina kitai shuwaha we pa te blego da de wakanda sing wala like de. Tida da mugadita te waha ni ashinga edan gutta o ki mare. Omaha usko we mache mare da de wakanda sing wala nek singa nana mana o ki da de wakanda sing wala like de. Pahaga dita Omaha nek singa au tega manings tu weamaga da de wakanda sing wala like. Gage grobachti ugache de ujitam da de wakanda sing wala like. Omaha nek singa gage wegi sida uwaki ho shama tibu setam. Uwe wakpanechti webaham da de wakanda sing wala like. Da yola gera do we alagi da Omaha nek singa da de wagasit. Ego ohe is wauge te blego da de wakanda sing wala like.
Prayer came naturally to them. They lived in a world whose material and spiritual natures were inseparably woven together. They revered the earth as mother, the sky as father, and saw themselves as kin to every living thing. When the first pilgrims arrived seeking religious freedom, the natives who greeted them had been worshiping here for 1,000 years. This land in which their ancestors slept was sacred to them. They were rooted here, and they had developed complex societies, economies, codes of justice, long before Columbus, who, when looking for a trade route to the backside of the globe, happened upon North America. Mistakenly, he called them Indians, naming them for a continent he thought he had reached. But these Indians were native to this land. Centuries before any of the European adventurers crossed the Atlantic in search of plunder, Native Americans had made this continent their home, had learned respect for its abundance. This land and its native people belonged to each other. But the hordes of invading Europeans were blind to all of this. Incredibly, they saw only empty, uninhabited space. In his classic Democracy in America, the normally astute Alexis de Tocqueville wrote, "America was inhabited only by wandering tribes who had no thought of profiting by natural riches of the soil. This vast country was still, properly speaking, an empty continent, a desert land awaiting its inhabitants." A desert land awaiting inhabitants? By the dawn of the 17th century, well-organized settlements of Native Americans had already occupied virtually the entire continent and were bound to the land and its resources by deep and profound spiritual ties.
Everything out there, is a reason for everything. And the Indians, it's just the way they were, the understanding of that. Of this, what God created. Native Americans had everything out there that they wanted was out there. The food, a tree, give them their food, give them their clothing, like the grass too, give them clothing, give them shelter. People can understand the way the Indians feel about them things. I think, a lot of things would be better, not just for Native American people, but for all people,
But to the immigrants from Europe, the land meant only wealth, available for the taking. Trading posts were established and became settlements. As more immigrants arrived, settlements grew into villages, then cities. And the Native American population was systematically pushed ever further westward. Among the many Native American nations then occupying the North American midsection was a tribe known as the Omaha, or in their native language, Omaha. They lived by farming, hunting, fishing. The land that sustained them stretched from what is now South Dakota, south to Kansas, and west from Missouri to Wyoming. They were people of the land and of the river. Many of their principal villages were sited along the banks of the Missouri, and it was from the river that they took their name. Omaha means literally, against the current. The name Omaha was given to the tribe because it migrated upstream against the current of the Missouri River. As did many plains tribes, the Omaha planted corn and other crops on this land. They also hunted buffalo, deer, and other animals that roamed the plains, and as did most Native Americans of the period, they fashioned their clothing, shelter, and many of their tools from game taken during the hunt. A deeply spiritual people, the Omaha or Omaha would pray over their kill, thanking the animals for their sacrifice, and promising to put to good use all the meat, bones, and hides of the animals they regarded as brothers. In fact, the entire lifestyle of the Omaha was guided and governed by their spiritual relationship to the land, the rivers, and the heavens. They saw the earth as sacred mother, source of all being, and the rivers as breathing life into every creature born of Mother Earth. Overarching all was the sky, where the Father God dwelt, known as Wakanda.
They have a great respect for the creation of Great Spirit. And the Mother Earth, we have a lot of great respect for that. And even today, some of our religious ceremonies, we show our respect for Mother Earth because all the things that it provides for us, provide food and all the living things we need that's life-giving, Mother Earth provides for that. And for that reason, we have a lot of respect for Mother Earth.
The importance of spiritual values to the Omaha was evident everywhere. Their villages, for example, were arranged in a circle with the main entrance to the east in order to welcome the morning sun. The tribe itself was organized into two grand divisions, the Sky People and the Earth People. Originally, each grand division included 5 clans, each carrying the name of an animal or natural force recognized by the tribe. Every clan was responsible for unique services and responsibilities within the tribe. The clan leaders were also chiefs, and together they established tribe policy, enforced rules, and settled disputes.
Our clanship is another very strong aspect of our tribal unity. And the clanship is actually so vivid in all our minds that our little children, when they're 4 days old, are named, they're given their Indian name. And they carry that through their lifetime, and it denotes what clan they're from. And it's very important. And I think that's probably the strongest link that we have left.
He Chagamani. He Chagamani. I belong to the Deer clan, so it refers to the horn, walking with rough horn.
The Omaha saw the land they occupied as evidence of God's bounty, a resource whose game and crops were gifts to those who nurtured the land and respected its spiritual nature. But the concept of land ownership was alien to most tribes. If, for example, a clan actively cultivated a plot of land, their use rights were respected until they no longer farmed it. And although tribal hunting territories were generally respected by each tribal nation, the land itself was usually open to anyone, to hunt or to travel or to camp on. The European colonists, of course, treated land very differently. Seeing it as a source of wealth, they were determined to control it, to parcel it, define it, survey it, fence it, to own it. And if the natives chose to make no such possessive claims to the land, well, then it could be considered free for the taking, and take the white man did. As the Europeans outgrew their original settlements on the eastern seaboard, they spread west, and the tribes in their path The peoples who had lived on this land since time out of memory were assimilated or displaced or obliterated. Tribe after tribe was forced from its lands. Some resisted, and some white settlers were openly sympathetic to the plight of those they called Indians. But the prevailing mood of the day was succinctly expressed by the editor of a major newspaper, quote, "Sympathy and sentiment never stand in the way of the onward march of empire. And if the Indians don't learn the value of property and how to adjust themselves to it, they will be grafted out of it. That is one of the unchangeable laws of God and the Constitution of man." As the colonies grew, they organized themselves into a group of 13 United States and went to war with the British. At issue was white ownership of huge areas of land, which until very recently had never felt the imprint of a white man's foot. In 1803, the fledgling United States doubled its geographical size by purchasing from France the land designated as the Louisiana Territory. Though the French claim to this wealth of rivers, plains, forests, and mountains rested on no more persuasive legal foundation than the uninvited presence of a few white trappers and traders. No one thought to ask the Native American tribal nations, dwellers here for a millennium or more, how they felt about such wholesale privatization of lands so long deemed to be owned by God. Almost at once, the government of the United States set out to explore and map the new territory. These vast plainlands were bisected by the Missouri River, which the Lewis and Clark expedition traveled and charted from its juncture with the Mississippi to its source. Later, the Missouri River would become a boundary of the Omaha reservation. Willingly or not, most of the Indian nations by now had moved further west, were scattered, or simply vanished. But the U.S. government was becoming increasingly impatient with those that resisted resettlement to the west, or refused to be assimilated into the white man's world. The orders to the Army came from the President of the United States, Andrew Jackson, quote, "Push all Indians west of the Mississippi River. If they won't willingly move, kill every one of them." During the 1880s, the U.S. government's Homestead Act formally opened the Western Territories to further occupation. The Omaha tribe, with its primary village locations near the Missouri River, hunted and fished a 231 square mile area of the plains, formerly occupying land totaling 4,250,000 acres. But in 1837, Omaha Chief Big Elk traveled to Washington to meet with U.S. government officials. The following year he returned, bringing a prophetic message to his people. "My chiefs, braves, and young men, I have just returned from a visit to a far-off country toward the rising sun and have seen many strange things. I bring you news which it saddens my heart to think of. There is a coming flood which will soon reach us, and I advise you to prepare for it. Soon the animals which Wakanda has given us for sustenance will disappear beneath this flood to return no more, and it will be very hard for you." By 1854, it had become clear to the Omaha that it was futile to continue resisting the flood of white settlers, and not wanting to be moved from their sacred riverbank land, the Omaha negotiated a treaty with the U.S. government. This contract confined the tribe to a formal reservation of just 268,000 acres, only 11% of the land they had previously occupied. But at least the Omaha would not have to leave their sacred Missouri River home. One reason the government did not force the Omaha to move further west was the perception of most white farmers that these hilly, flood-prone lands near the Missouri had little value for raising crops, grazing, or otherwise earning money. Attempting to allay the concerns of some white settlers, an Indian commissioner for the government wrote that these reservations will cause any considerable annoyance to the whites we do not believe. They consist for the most part of ground unfitted for cultivation, but suited to the peculiar habits of Indians. The white man's views on the value of Omaha land were of little importance to the tribe. This was their home, land they knew and loved. Just as important, it was sacred land, for here their parents and grandparents slept. Hoping the Omaha acceptance of the reservation treaty would encourage similar cooperation from Western tribes not yet confined to reservations, the government made a promise. This land will be your land forever. You will govern it yourself and answer only to the federal government.
I wish they'd give back our land so a lot of them could live in them, these young ones. So they could start a little chicken farm or something, farm it, make money that way. They ain't got jobs in Macy.
That they were close to this water. You know, I always wonder why is this water so important? And it was that water was alive.
Yet I'm thankful to see my land out here, the land that our ancestors were placed in, wherever they were pushed from, you know. And so they cannot take this away from us. They cannot take this land away from us. It is our land, the Indian people's land.
However, in 1870, just 16 years later, the U.S. government arbitrarily awarded nearly half of the Omaha reservation to the Winnebago tribe, which had been forced from its home in Wisconsin. As a result, the Omaha now had only 137,000 acres on which to hunt, to fish, to survive. Powerless to prevent the government's action and determined not to lose what remained of their homeland, the tribe once again accepted the word of the United States government. But the Omaha had learned that the government's word alone was no guarantee. In the 1870s, fearing that without a formal deed to the reservation the tribe might suffer added loss of land, the Omaha petitioned the federal government for allotment deeds, officially granting the tribe title to the reservation's land. The result was the precedent-setting Allotment Act No. 100, which provided formal deeds to land allotments for each tribal family, and later served as a model for other tribes in their dealings with the U.S. government. There was, of course, a catch. Only 17,200 acres of the land in question were actually deeded to tribal members. The remaining 127,000 acres were taken from the tribe and opened up to homesteading for whites. The reason? The President of the United States, Grover Cleveland, had an answer. The hunger and thirst of the white man for Indian land is almost equal to his hunger and thirst for righteousness. The breakup of the tribal village into deeded allotments for each family, coupled with naive land sales by some families to unscrupulous real estate agents, began the destruction of the traditional reservation community, and with it, the inevitable erosion of the Omaha culture and religion, which had always been closely bound to the land. Today, the Omaha tribe is left with a mere 13,040 acres, less than 1% of the land it originally occupied, and only 5% of the initial reservation grant awarded by the U.S. government. The Omaha tribe continues to live on a remnant of its original homeland, but working within the legal system, today's progressive and well-educated tribal leaders are attempting to regain land that was illegally or improperly taken from the tribe. A substantial part of that effort has centered on establishing the legally correct eastern boundary of the reservation, as defined by the Blackbird Bend section of the Missouri River. When the boundary of property is determined by a natural river, some interesting legal concepts come into play. Most rivers are meandering channels of water which, through flooding and natural erosion, are constantly moving from side to side. And while it is generally assumed that adjacent property boundaries move with the river channel, that's not always the case. Slow, gradual migratory river movement is known as accretion, and as this movement takes place, property boundaries do indeed move with the river channel. At other times, during a storm or flood, for example, a river may change its course suddenly, dramatically. Such a change is called avulsion, and when an avulsion occurs, the legal property lines remain where they had been prior to the change. The understanding that boundary changes resulting from gradual river accretion are legally permanent, while those resulting from sudden avulsion are not, is rooted in centuries of Old English law and has been widely accepted by U.S. courts as well. It was to become the basis for the next chapter in the struggle of the Omaha to retain their homeland. Tribal leaders had long believed that since the days of Lewis and Clark, accretion had gradually moved the Missouri River boundary of their reservation some distance to the east. By law, then, the reservation should have increased in size. Geologists and mapping experts hired by the tribe proved this to be true and revealed something else as well. Part of the acreage gained by accretion had later been lost through avulsion. As a result, the experts reported, more than 11,000 acres of land, now located east of the Missouri River, actually belonged to the Omaha. The problem was, the Missouri River marked not only the boundary of the Omaha Reservation, but also the border between Nebraska and Iowa. So if the proposed new boundary were to be accepted, reservation lands would cross state lines, and lands in which Iowa farmers had invested generations of time and expense would now suddenly become the property of the Omaha tribe. Resolving the conflicting claims would not be easy. Thoroughly convinced of the justice of their case, however, the tribe took the issue to court in 1975, seeking to have 6,000 of the claimed 11,000 acres returned. The suit would center on an area known as Blackbird Bend, a name that would become a symbol of hope and a rallying cry for the Omaha, and for others, a bitter reminder of historic land clashes between Indians and whites. Under pressure from state and local officials representing the land users' economic interest in the area, but recognizing as well the potential of the Omaha claim, the U.S. Justice Department inserted itself in the dispute, effectively preempting the tribe's existing suit. And despite strong objections by the tribe, the Justice Department filed its own suit on behalf of the Omaha. But instead of seeking to recover the 6,000 acres claimed by the Omaha, the Justice Department sought only some 2,000 acres of the Blackbird Bend Peninsula. In an effort to protect itself from the Justice Department's representation, the Omaha refiled their own suit for the complete 6,050-acre Blackbird Bend parcel, and were again cynically outmaneuvered. For now, the court consolidated the two suits before it, leading the tribe to believe that the court would at least address its larger claim. But not so. In its consolidation, the court chose to ignore the tribal claim altogether and deal only with the 2,000 acres recommended by the Justice Department. Hoping to dramatize their claim to the land and raise public awareness of the issue, members of the Omaha tribe crossed the river and physically occupied the Blackbird Bend land. Despite threats of armed aggression and bloodshed, they refused to leave it. Then, surprisingly, in light of the preceding events, the court upheld the Omaha occupation and eventually awarded the 2,000-acre parcel to the tribe. It was at best a blemished victory, particularly because further efforts by the tribe to press its claim to the remaining disputed acres were dismissed by the court with prejudice, which means the Omaha are left with few legal options in the struggle to win back the remainder of their Blackbird Bend land.
The land is so much a part of our life and of our history and even of our future that it's very hard to say because it was there. And I never realized that maybe we had even stronger and unique feelings about the land. was very difficult for any one of us to feel that we owned the land. And people never thought about putting up fences or putting up trespass signs. You seldom or if you ever see that on Indian lands, even today, that we were allowed to walk through that land, maybe pick up dry wood or for whatever reason we were there.
Mother Earth is the earth because like our mother born us. They raised us. Then this year, Mother Earth, same way we want something, it goes up, and that's how we eat, plant garden. That's a sacred. It's Mother Earth, they call it Mother Earth. We were born and walk on this, and we get things like all the wild game fruit that was gone. Today it's gone, but them days it was there. Strawberries and choke cherries and all them white apple and everything was there to have, today. It's that way, but it's still Mother Earth, That's what they call it, sacred, gone. The old people use it to ceremonies, I guess. And that's how they came to call it Mother Earth is sacred.
Nonetheless, the Blackbird Bend case served as an important milestone in the tribe's awakening. The Omaha were learning how to play the game, learning how to work the system. They were developing the educational, legal, political, and public affairs skills necessary to compete successfully in a pluralistic society. A renaissance period for the Omaha tribe had begun.
We are changing. We are making that transition from being maybe complacent, but not because we wanted to, but because we just haven't been progressive in our attitude or our approaches. And I think we're doing that today, and I'm just glad to see it happening, and I think it's been a long time coming.
I think this is wonderful that the people of Ottawa and Monona County are more interested in the reservation, more interested in Indians, and they're doing something for our county which hasn't been done. They're the largest employer in Monona County now, which is quite a few people.
I don't think there's any reason at all to believe that the fitting hasn't been improved 100 to 200%. I think they finally realized that the people in Iowa, the landowners, the people in town, I think they finally realized that it wasn't all the Omaha Nation's fault.
Today's Omaha reservation land continues to provide corn and other traditional crops, but on a much larger scale, thanks to modern equipment and agricultural science. And after years of resistance by local elevator operators who were reluctant to handle the Indian corn, these crops are now finding ready markets. Recent years have also seen a renewed interest in tribal cultural values, prompted by a deep fear of losing touch with the rich Omaha history and heritage. Like most Native American dialects, the Omaha language is not a written language, and much of the tribal history is preserved only in the heads and hearts of the elders.
I wanted to be identified as an American Indian, but how do I do that? I've got to have a spirituality, a feeling that I'm somebody. I belong to somebody. And that's the way I feel that the younger generation should feel, that be proud where they come from, and to identify with things in the past. Even though we can't revive them, we still have in our memory.
Today, many of the tribal members live outside the reservation.
I wanted them to know their culture and where they come from, and I hope when my baby's born, my grandma's still alive. She's really a neat person, and she taught us a lot. And but that it's neat to have a place to call home. You know, even though we were raised in St. Louis, my home is really back on the reservation. So that's where I got married, and it's a real special place.
Some tribal members left during hard times.
My dad always said that we left the reservation because time was so hard. You couldn't find any work. We left the reservation, he said, in search of food, survival.
But a fierce desire to preserve the Omaha culture and to pass it on to future generations continues not only on the reservation, but off it as well.
It has been a struggle, and it has to be a deliberate effort on my part to keep our cultural ways alive. And even when I was in Oklahoma, I made trips back to the reservation at least 4 times a year. And so I've always kept up my ties with home. We always called it home. I mean, the land base, I guess, it always meant so much to all of us. So it was always a homage to us to come home, and particularly our annual dances. That's always the homecoming, and I made sure that my children and I participated in those.
The tribal elders will tell you that their values are centered here in the spiritual mind, thanking Almighty God for each new day and asking only for others, never for oneself. Every day is treated as Sunday on the Omaha reservation.
A lot of the Midwestern tribes, you know, we have what is called, sharing, caring, giving society. I know when we had our per capita payment in last December, we worked with one of the largest banks in the city of Omaha, and it was hard for them, a lot of the corporate executives, to see why we would want to do something with a large amount of millions of dollars of money, whereas they would probably view it as far as investing or those types of things. But when you look at the two different cultures, we wanted to share.
Each year, the Omaha tribe celebrates its Thanksgiving by inviting all tribal members home to their harvest celebration powwow, as they have annually for almost 2 centuries. Much of this celebration is open to the public, but it is held each year primarily for the tribe, giving its families a chance to mingle, to sing, to dance, and most of all, to celebrate being Omaha. The tribal costumes, or regalia, vary from simple to fancy, each designed by its owner to reflect his or her personality, clan, and family. Each regalia is adorned with sacred eagle feathers. Should one of these prized feathers fall to the ground, it is ceremoniously recovered and returned to its owner. The eagle is a most sacred creature to the Omaha. Feather ceremonies are often held for young men and women, signifying a significant step towards adulthood and increased responsibility. Today, special powwow guests may include civic leaders from local communities, perhaps even some who have contested the tribe's claim to the riverfront land.
In light of all that, it doesn't do us any good to have sour grapes or to have hateful feelings, towards anybody or any particular group of people over there. So what we've had in the last year or so is this attitude of reconciliation. We need to work together, for political, legal, and economic reasons. And I think that's what I'm interested in. We have, had sessions where we've met with them, where we've invited them. And the things that have taken place are very significant because we have crossed the lines now, where we communicate, where we talk to each other, And I think that's needed. I think communication is critical to our success.
The city of Ottawa and Monona County in general, I think that this was kind of demonstrated that we were going to extend a helping hand to one another. This was evidenced by a proclamation that was signed by a tribal chairman here during July, in that we were being recognized as good partners and good neighbors by the city of Ottawa.
And the elevators take their crops. They're glad to have the Indian corn. The Indian people bring their grain over to our elevators. When they come over to the elevator, they also buy supplies. Our hardware stores, our filling stations, our machinery dealers are all very much interested in the traffic from the reservation.
Powwow songs tell of past battles with other tribes and hunting expeditions. They may also celebrate the sun and Mother Earth.
To me, it means whole circle is completed as our Indians dance around in the circle. Our Omaha people, we depend a lot on Mother Nature, Mother Earth. We eat like milkweed. Hardly the other tribes hardly eat that, but around here we got a lot of milkweed. We eat that. We nourish off Mother Nature. Like the animals around here, we get different stuff from the food, leather, feathers, all kinds of stuff.
Everything began with the earth. I've even heard it said that the earth is like your mother. Everything comes from the earth. The trees, the flowers, everything is kind of born from the earth. This is the way of life for me. I love my own, I love my home. Maybe it isn't much to other people, but to me, here, it's here. My home.
I have to live in 2 worlds, and it's nice to come home, because the sense of know who you are, it's tradition.
You say 2 worlds. What 2 worlds?
The white world and this one. It's very hard for me to go back and forth.
You could spend much time in this one?
I come back about every weekend. Mm-hmm.
What's special about the tribe coming back here? You've got friends on both sides. What makes these friends special?
I don't know. They're just more like me.
Among the Native American nations, the Omaha are neither the largest, nor the most warlike, nor the most studied. But they may well be the most tenacious in their determination to preserve their heritage and their land. In the 1970s, the tribe brought its claim for the rich river-bottom land of Blackbird Bend all the way to the United States Supreme Court, winning back at least part of the land that was justly theirs. Amid all these adversities, the Omaha people have maintained a special sense of identity, cherishing and preserving the cultural traditions that bind them closely to the ancestors who continue to sleep in their sacred land. They have remained Omaha, the people against the current, for the Omaha have always labored upstream, against the odds, in the struggle to preserve their tribe and its unique culture. The great open hunting lands once shared by all the Native American tribes are no more, leaving to the Omaha families only small tracts of land that no one else wanted. But the people and their values endure. This proud nation is experiencing a renaissance of its own making, and to a society that is always taken from them, the Omaha offer profound insights into the nature of peacemaking, the meaning and rewards of abiding family values, and perhaps most of all, the urgent necessity of restoring kinship with the land that is, after all, mother to us all.
We cherish this land because this was given to us by our Father God. He has chosen us to be here.
I am always taken back by our very common sense approach to life, and it always comes so easy, but then at the same time being very proud of our heritage and thinking, gosh, we just, can't lose this. It just seems to have so much meaning.
The times are changing, pretty quick and pretty fast, and the children, they kind of have to, in two worlds almost. There's no way, that we can go back to maybe living the traditional way, but our values, we can always keep them